we actually discovered that there's this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's now known as post-betrayal syndrome. And what's so interesting is we've had, I don't know, easily 95,000 plus people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. We've all been taught time heals all wounds. I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. Okay, I got some hot topic. I mean, this is going to feel a little juicy. Maybe not at all, actually. But when I discovered today's guest and what they talk about, I was like, oh, yeah, we have not talked about this, not in a high level way. We've definitely had guests come on who have shared how they're betrayed in their life and then how they've made it to where they are today, just to inspire you to be it till you see it. But we've actually never had a expert on the topic of betrayal. And I really enjoyed it. I feel like I just went to a whole study class on betrayal. I feel like I'm really aware of it. And I already have 3 people I want to send this episode. It's not even ready yet. I'm literally finished recording it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to send it to this person. I have to send this to this person. And so my hope is that today's episode on betrayal not only educates you, and maybe what you're going through, what's keeping you from being it till you see it is an old betrayal. And that can really suck to admit to, to think that 20 years ago, something happened to you and you haven't yet healed from that. And I just want to make sure you know that that's okay. You're not the only one. You're not the first person. You're not the last person. But hopefully with today's guest, Dr. Debi Silber, we can start to heal. And we can all go from a place of being betrayed and letting it take over our lives to actually making it make our lives, right? What they can be. And so this episode goes through a lot of statistics, a lot of information, a lot of symptoms you might be feeling in your life that could all be from a betrayal in your life, and also the ways that you can get out of it. So I'm really excited for this episode. I think it's going to be really awesome. And again, I do think it's one of those ones you're going to share with your friends right now because I'm about to send information to mine. So have an amazing day, and I cannot wait to hear your takeaways. And here's Dr. Debi Silber. All right, Be It Babe. I'm really excited for today's topic. Actually, I don't think we've even discussed this topic on the podcast, and it is 100% aligned with us being it till we see it. So we have Dr. Debi Silber here. She is an amazing person who has truly forged her own path and is helping people on the topic of betrayal. So Dr. Debi Silber, will you please introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and what you are?
Yes, sure. Looking forward to this conversation. So I run the founder and CEO of the PBT, Post Betrayal Transformation Institute. I mean, clearly you don't study something like betrayal unless you have to. So I'm in business over 30 years, health, mindset, personal development. And then I had a really painful betrayal from my family. Thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. And then it happened again a few years later. This time it was my husband. That was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house, looked at the 2 experiences thinking, well, what's similar to these 2? Of course, me, but what else? And I realized, boundaries were always getting crossed, never took my needs seriously. And I am one of those people that believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. So here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And I said, I'm like a book wasn't going to get me out of this jam. I needed a whole PhD in it. So I did. I enrolled in a PhD program in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential, because I was changing so much I didn't quite understand it. He was too, wasn't ready to look at that. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive. That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
Okay. I mean, crazy, amazing. No, not that I would ever wish betrayal on anybody, but thank goodness like were able to take your betrayal and make it what it is, because you start to think about the different things that could happen to you that can really prevent you from living the life you want to live. And betrayal is this one thing where you can see people in your life, or maybe someone listening right now, like that is the thing that's keeping them from showing up in the world, because the last time they did it, they got betrayed or whatever. So I just think that like, this is an amazing topic. Can we just like go down to the 101 of what betrayal is, just in case people are like, I've never been betrayed before. My life is fine.
Sure. Yeah. And maybe it is. I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule, and every relationship has them. So the way it works is the more we trust and the more we depend on that person, the deeper the betrayal. So for example, a child who is totally dependent on their parent and the parent does something awful, that's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret, your coworker taking credit for your idea. Still a betrayal, different level of cleanup needed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting way of putting it. Like, the stronger the bond, the deeper the betrayal. Okay. So then you start to go through and try to figure out what works to heal from betrayal. Obviously there's some things that people can do that are better than others. Like, what is the process of, like, is it first just recognizing that you've been betrayed? Is it going within? Is it screaming and yelling at the other person?
Yes. It's all those, depending on where you're at. The first thing is, you have to know where, what betrayal does. And that's where the discoveries really came in. So I'm happy to share what they are, because that'll give such context to what we're talking about. So at first I was studying, like, I had a feeling betrayal was a different type of trauma than, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster. Like, I had been through death of a loved one and I'd been through a disease, and I was like, you know what? Betrayal feels different. I didn't want to assume that it was the same for everyone in my study. So I asked them, if you've been through other types of traumas, does betrayal feel different for you? Unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it's so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered and has to be rebuilt. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust, like that, they're all demolished and have to be rebuilt. Like, for example, if you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss, life will never be the same. But you don't question the relationship. You don't question the trust. You don't question your sanity. Betrayal has you questioning all of it. So that type of healing needed its own name, which is now called Post Betrayal Transformation, the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself after an experience with betrayal. So that betrayal is a different type of trauma. That was the first discovery. Yeah. The second one was, we actually discovered that there's this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's now known as post-betrayal syndrome. And what's so interesting is we've had, easily 95,000 plus people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. We've all been taught time heals all wounds. I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true.
Yeah.
There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened, 10 years ago. It feels like it happened yesterday. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. I feel gutted. So we know you cannot count on time, or you can't even count on a new relationship to heal betrayal. Healing needs to be deliberate and intentional. And I'm happy to share some of those stats from the quiz if that would serve.
Yeah, I'm like fascinated because we've all seen it. Like, we've all had that family member who, like, something happened to them and they were never the same again. And it can be so easy, like, oh my gosh, like they could just have like gotten over it. Like, they should just get over it. And part of me is like, maybe like, for some reason, my brain is going like, betrayal. At some point, you might even think that you betrayed yourself. Like, it's almost like you could reverse the betrayal that you did it to you because I trusted them. Oh, I didn't listen to that red flag that I've had. Like, you start to like take it on as you did it to you.
And everything you're saying about the stuckness, I'm going to talk about that in the third discovery.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, these symptoms are so classic for post-betrayal syndrome. And here's the thing, we associate it because let's say the betrayal happened years ago. We're like, well, clearly it's not from that. Oh, but yes, it is. But we think because it was so long ago, it's got to be from aging. It's got to just be from daily stress. No, it's not. It's from your unhealed betrayal.
Yeah.
So,
okay, let's go on the next one. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want me to read the stats? You want me to?
Yeah, let's read them. Mm-hmm.
So out of 95,000 plus people, men, women, just about every country's represented. 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. I mean, that's exhausting. 94% deal with painful triggers. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. 63% have extreme fatigue. Your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're an emotional eater. You're using food for comfort. 45% have a digestive issue, and that could be anything: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, anything. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed. 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief. 68% can't focus. 64% are in shock. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate. You have a gut issue. You're exhausted. You still have to feed your kids.
Right.
You still have to work.
Oh, and all this is compounding. So like, and what's crazy to me is like, it's the majority, all this is like a majority. So it's not like some people with betrayal experience this and some people experience it's like, well, they're all pretty much experiencing these things. And it's just, all of that is exhausting. And you got to show up, and then you have these expectations on yourself and you can't meet them. So that's another spiral.
Oh yeah. And you're so right. And that's not even the emotional issues. So emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And you just bounce back and forth between those two emotions all day long. It's debilitating. 82% feel hurt. 80% have anxiety. 79% are stressed. Just a few more. Here's why I wrote the book, Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. 67%, I hope that landed. I mean, that's huge. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Yeah. Like, it's like this, it's not like they don't want their life back, but they don't know the next steps because moving on, everything we've ever been told, just get over it. You'll meet someone else. Or like, it's that hurt people. So they were just hurting. like it's none of that stuff is really helpful for you to build trust again. And also, and the thing about trust, which I'm sure you talk about in your book, and we can go into that, is like, to build trust, you have to trust. Like you actually have to be vulnerable in a beginning of a relationship so that trust is built. But people want trust to be there before they're vulnerable once they've gone through something like that. And so is that kind of why is that what you talk about in the book, Trust Again? Is that like
Absolutely.
one of the things?
It is definitely one of the things. And just to wrap up the post-betrayal syndrome stats, think about it. You didn't hear me say one thing that said, 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high. They're also not necessarily from a recent betrayal. So this could be from that parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be from the girlfriend or boyfriend who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are, decades later, with these symptoms because we haven't healed it from way back then. Mm-hmm. That's the crime. The good news is you could heal from all of it, which was the third discovery.
Yeah. So, okay. I do want to know how we can heal from it. Let's go there.
Yeah. And then I'll circle back to, if you want, how to know, when you said about, being willing to trust and unwilling and putting the big wall up and all those things. I mean, I can go there too.
Yeah, I do.
So the third discovery, this to me was the most exciting. And what was discovered was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome that I just shared, to that completely rebuilt place of where you're whole, healed, complete, of post-betrayal transformation, to get from one to the next, we're going to move through 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every one of those stages. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. Happy to go through the stages if you
Yeah,
want.
I do. I love this. I had no idea it could be so predictable. So I want to hear.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, there's a roadmap now for it. And so it's all mapped out in Trust Again. It's all we do within the PBT Institute. It's what all of our coaches are certified in, moving people through the 5 stages, but I'll share them briefly here.
Yeah.
So stage 1, if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing, and kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a table with only 2 legs, it's easy for that table to topple over. That's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, Discovery Day, the scariest of all of the stages. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. Right here, you got the news. You've ignited the stress response. You are now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around what you just learned. This makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model, the rules that govern us, that prevent chaos. Don't go there. Trust this person. This is how life works. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've known and you've held to be real and true is no longer. The bottom has truly bottomed down on you. And the new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So this is terrifying. I remember a study participant saying, you know what it feels like? It felt like every negative emotion you can imagine getting punched in the stomach and losing a child in a crowd all at the same time. It's awful.
Like you're searching, you're searching and searching, and your adrenaline's going to find something, and you just been like crippled at the same time, so you can't even do it. Yeah, that is
absolutely.
I can feel that for them.
Yeah, it's visceral. So, but think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything or anyone you could to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I feed my kids? Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place we get stuck. You know so many people in this stage, and I will explain it and you will see. This is the place we get stuck, and here's why. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where we just came from, we think it's good. And because we're like, okay, I got this. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we park here, we plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And 4 things happen. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But we don't know anything about that. So we plant roots here, and these 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all these small self benefits from being here. We get our story. We like our story. We get to be right. We like being right. You know, we get a target for our anger. We get someone to blame. We don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. Can I trust you? Should I trust you? I forget. I'm not trusting anybody. So we plant deeper roots. Yeah. Again, we're not supposed to, but we don't know. And now because, you know, we're here longer than we should be, we start thinking things like, well, you know, maybe you're not that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now because these are the thoughts we're thinking, well, this is the energy we're putting out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now we start calling situations, and circumstances, and relationships towards us to confirm, yep, this is exactly where you belong.
Yeah, it's that cognitive bias, whatever. Yeah, right. It's a whole, like, you're just, I think this, I see this, it's proved me correct.
And your mind will find you as much confirming evidence as you want to see. And then you also, the misery loves company crowd comes along now too. Here's also where you find that support group, that like in an awful club where it's like, this happened to me. Oh, you think that's bad. This happened to me. And now you found your people. Yeah. So you're hesitant to grow because you don't want to outgrow your people. The longer you're here, the harder it gets to leave because this becomes your identity. Yeah. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but you don't know there's anywhere else to go. You resign yourself right here. You're like, this stinks, but like, I have to get through my day. I have to go to work. I have to feed my kids. So right here is where you start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, whatever it is, to numb, avoid, and distract yourself. So think about it. You do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. I can seriously see someone 20 years later and say, you know, that emotional eating you're doing or that drinking you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
It would say 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it totally does. And I think like it's so interesting because the world would have you think, oh, well, if you're emotionally eating, then you should just eat fewer calories and like go deal with your emotions. But it's like, it's not even, it's not a conscious awareness that those two go together. And also you just trying to mask that, like, oh, okay, I'll just eat less, set you up for failure. You're going to screw up because that's just human. It's just going to happen. And so then you're even more in your stuckness because you're like, I'm not even good at this.
That's it. Right. And that's why it's so common to stay there. And, you know, it's interesting because trust again maps out the 5 stages. But that's why I wrote From Hardened to Healed. I'm like, you've been through the worst of it already. What in the world are you doing staying stuck in stage 3? From Hardened to Healed is just for stage 3.
Wow.
Because that's where most people live and stay for life. And I'll tell, if you remind me, I'll get back to, I want to get people out of stage 3.
Yeah.
But if you remind me, like, how do you know if you're in stage 3? I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you are willingness is a huge word right here. If you are willing to let go of the small self benefits, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Just in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you just stopped the massive damage you've been creating in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, all your stuff's not there. It's not cozy yet, but you're like, okay, we got this. Stage 4 feels like that. But think about it. If you were to move, you don't bring everything. You know, you don't take those things that don't represent who you want to be when you're in your new space. And what I found was there's this one spot in moving from stage 3 to stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. You've outgrown that. And it's so common. People say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, you don't bring them. Very common.
That's probably the hardest part. I'm sure in your work, you see people who have a hard time letting go of those friends. I've had them for so much of my life. And it's like, if it's true, if they're not rising up with you, if they're not willing to stop telling the story as well, if they're not willing to stop being stuck, it's not that you're being a dick, not taking them with you. It's like actually part of you becoming the person you've always wanted to be. If you loved being in stage 3, you would stay there, but you're not loving it.
That's it. And here's the thing. Do you know how often I'll see somebody sabotaging their growth because they don't want to outgrow their betrayer or they don't want to outgrow the friends they made in that stuck place. So they'll find themselves constantly sabotaging their success so that they stay with the familiar known. The only benefit is that it's familiar. That's the only thing. But because it's familiar, they will, that's it. It's not worth healing and rebuilding themselves because of the known familiar. But what's waiting for you in stage 4 and stage 5 is mind blown. So let me get to stage 5 and then I'll tell you what we see. So stage 5, once you've settled into this new mental space, you've made it cozy, you've made it home, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You just couldn't do that before. You didn't have the bandwidth. Your mind is healing. You're making new rules. You're making new boundaries, based on the road you just traveled. And you have a new worldview based on everything you see so clearly and so differently now. And the 4 legs of the table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5.
Yeah, this is really cool. So, because I feel like, the whole reason this podcast exists is that people think that they have to fake it till they make it. And like, I'm not about that because like, I think that like acting as if you're the person that you want to be allows you to make decisions like that person would. And so what I was attracted to this topic so much is that like, I see so many people with all the tools. They have all of them. They actually have the goals, they have the things, and they keep self-sabotaging or staying stuck or playing small or replaying a story. Well, last time I tried to do something, this happened to me. And so I love that you've found these 5 and also all these things that like, I think so many people are walking around from betrayal symptoms, not just like, like depression is a symptom of betrayal. It's not that, so I feel like we're going around trying to heal symptoms and not actually the cause of the problem. Is that what your studies all found?
It's 100%, because think about it. Like, for example, 45% of everybody betrayed has a gut issue. You could go to the best gut doctor on the planet. I'm friends with many of them, right? But here's the thing, that the amazing protocols they recommend will only take you so far. If there's an unhealed betrayal at the root of it, unless and until you heal that, that's the issue. Or let's say, you in the beginning, you couldn't hold food down, and later on you become an emotional eater. Then you try to lose weight. Well, and you try all these weight loss things. That's not the issue. Or you can't sleep, so you start taking something for sleep, or your adrenals have tanked and you're taking something like some sort of adrenal support. They're all wonderful, right?
Yeah.
But at the root of it is that unhealed betrayal. But when you move out of stage 3 into stage 4 and 5, what we see constantly within the PBT Institute, that's where you are ready for a new level of relationship with someone entirely new, or with a completely revamped person of the person who hurt you. That's when we see new levels of health. That's where, if I tell you how many businesses get birthed in stages 4 and 5, the PBT Institute, that was a stage 5 thing. You don't have access to all of that newness when you're stuck in your trauma.
Yeah.
You get your story, but that's really just about all you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah. So part of me wonders, like, do you think there's some people who have particularly like blocked the betrayal so much that they're almost in denial that their problems are from betrayal? Like, some of these things might have happened when they were children. Some of these things happen when they're adults. How do you go about like understanding what betrayal you need to heal from if you're not aware? Like, yeah. I mean, people might think that, like, so you're crazy. No, like if my partner cheated on me, that's a very obvious betrayal. But there might be some betrayals that like happened to you that were kind of you were conditioned to, so you don't even call it that. You think it was your fault. So I guess I'm just wondering if there's like some ways to figure out if betrayal is what you're going through.
100%. So take a look at your health, your work, your relationships. We'll see it in these 3 areas all the time. For example, in your relationships, I'll see an unhealed betrayal in one of 2 ways. The first is a repeat betrayal. The face has changed, but it's the same thing. You keep going from boss to boss to boss, friend to friend to friend, partner to partner to partner. Like, what the heck? Is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that it's your fault, in that it's your opportunity. There is a gigantic lesson waiting to be learned. You are lovable, worthy, and deserving. You need better boundaries in place. Whatever that lesson is, until and unless you get that, you're going to have opportunities in the form of people to teach you. Like, for example, in my case, I had a painful betrayal from my family. And then I was like, all right, let me just heal from this. I think I'm over it. I'm good. And then my husband. But look at what I did here. For me, I never did anything for myself. I wasn't even on my own like to-do list, For me to enroll in a PhD program, I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I didn't know how I was going to manage the time. If I tell you how many people said I was full-blown crazy, right? But in making such a radical decision for me, it completely changed my life. And just to close the loop on my story so everybody knows, healing and rebuilding is always a choice. Whether you rebuild yourself and move on, and that's what I did with my family, wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new as 2 entirely different people. That's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as 2 totally different people, we married each other again.
Oh my God.
New house, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party. Betrayal will show you who someone truly is. It also has the opportunity to wake them up to who they temporarily became. Not that you need to do anything with that, but what most people do though is they're so afraid of the complete and utter death and destruction of the old. That's the only way you birth the new.
This is I'm happy to hear that because it sounds like you both had to go through some things for that to actually come back and like refine each other in massive ways. And I'm sure it wasn't easy. I like that you break it down to like health, like relationships, and I think the third one was work, or was that family?
Yeah, I'd love to show explain how it shows up in those different areas.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So in relationships, it's going to show up in one of those two ways. In repeat betrayal, that is an unhealed betrayal. Lesson has not been learned. The second way is the big wall goes up. It's like, nope, been there, done that. No one's getting near me again. And we think that's coming from a place of strength, and it's not. It's coming from fear. Our heart was so hurt that we are unwilling to risk that level of vulnerability because we just can't fathom the thought of that level of pain again. So we would rather keep everyone at bay than take the risk of that pain.
Mm-hmm.
That's an unhealed betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
We see it in health. People go to the most well-meaning, very good doctors, coaches, healers, therapists to manage a stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease at the root of it. Like we said before, is that unhealed betrayal. And we see it at work too, where let's say you deserve that raise or promotion, but you don't have the confidence to ask because your confidence was shattered in the betrayal. Or you want to be a team player, you want to be a collaborative partner, joint venture partner, but the person you trusted the most proved untrustworthy. How do you trust that boss, that coworker, that partner? You see?
Yeah.
It shows up everywhere.
Yeah. I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and this girl had wrote in a question like, I want to ask for a raise. My raise last time was like 3%. And I feel like I should be making 10 or 15,000 more than I'm making. I fear that people are, but I like had some mistakes in my past jobs. And all I was thinking is like, not at this job. You've been fine at this job. You can ask for the raise. And they're like telling her like, you should be looking up they're paying you way too little for this. You should be looking up these things. And all I could think is like, this poor person is carrying on some weight on their shoulder as if it's like, I mean, the way she said it was as if she'd like killed someone at her past job. And it was, I doubt it.
And when you say that, and the first thing that comes to my mind is worthiness and confidence shattered. Mm-hmm. That's a betrayal. I'm sure. Sure. I wish I could speak to her because I'm sure that's what's at the root of it.
Yeah, I feel like okay. You guys study all these people, but I feel like almost you don't go through life without like no one gets through life being unscathed. I feel like betrayal can happen. So some of it so intentionally, or I guess maybe it's unintentional as well. Even the people who are cheating on their spouses, like I don't know that they intentionally go, I'm betraying this person, but like it feels so personal, as we talked about at the beginning, that I feel like it can happen in a lot of different instances just by being part of the world. So I guess I'm wondering, like, is there a way to prevent betrayal?
Integrity. And that's the thing. It's such a part of our lives. And you wonder, it's like, why in the world would this be such a part of our lives? I kind of look at it as it gives you an opportunity to completely catapult yourself to a level of you never even thought possible. You know what it's like? It's like, my kids used to love Legos, right? So imagine there's a Lego structure sitting in a corner of the living room. It's not good. It's just there. It's just built, right? And then one day it's just completely knocked down. Rebuilding yourself and transforming after betrayal is like looking at that Lego structure and say, you know what? I don't want to use that piece. I don't want to build it that way. I'm going to use this. I'm going to do it like that. You are recreating everything. And betrayal lends itself to creating an entirely new version of you, where you take all the parts of you that you love and you leave behind everything that no longer serves. Like if the old you settled, if the old you tolerated, stuff that this version of you doesn't want to, if the old you didn't speak up for yourself, whatever it was, you have so many opportunities after betrayal because everything's been leveled to decide who it is you want to be. And this isn't just having to do with another person. This is with yourself. Like, for example, after my betrayal, I realized, I'm so hard on myself. I was always I was criticizing myself and so critical. And you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So I decided that after betrayal, I used to always do things that I would call so stupid and so dumb, like I'd get lost wherever I go. It's just part of what I do. I just get lost. And I decided, you know what? I'm just not going to call myself those names. So now when I do those same things, it's simply adorable.
Yes. What a kind way to talk to yourself.
So I'll get lost just as I always do. And now I'm like, you're just so adorable. You see what I mean? So it's like you get to rebuild whatever you want. That's the opportunity, but you never access that stuff when you're stuck because you're like, I have my story. It's like, think about it. I had a very powerful story. All the people that I trusted all betrayed me. But look at the story now. You know, the books, the TEDx talks, the Institute, thousands of people, the certified coaches, like it's a way better story.
Yeah. Okay. One more question. Now that you've gone through this and like you've helped all these people who recover and get to stage 5, do you find that people who've gone through stage 5, if betrayal happens to them again, they handle it? They don't have to go through all the stages again? Or like, do we have to like feel all the feelings?
It's two things. It's number one, it doesn't happen that way again because your BS meter is so strong and so sharpened that you don't attract those types of people in your lives. If you do, there's another lesson needing to be learned. But the good news is you have the tools to you get through it so much more quickly. And like the emotional trajectory of this is like this, and you breeze through it so much faster. It's like first you are so profoundly sad. You're like, oh my gosh, how could they do this to me? And, you know, you're heartbroken. And then it moves towards anger where you're like, how do you do that to me? Like, what? And that's actually healing. And then you get to this place of almost like pity, like, really? That's what you have to do. That's actually a really, really great place because it's almost as if you were in the picture and now you're out of the picture, looking at it, seeing it for what it is and realizing it's not you. So that's huge. And then you keep going with the healing, you move towards compassion. When you're in compassion, you're good. That's when you're healed. That doesn't mean you excuse it, you're setting yourself up for it again. None of that. It just means you have completely healed and used the situation to create the most healed, healthy, whole, complete version of you.
Oh, I love that. That's so, there's something like very promising and hopeful about that because it means that you don't have to repeat all of the stuckness and the level 3 and you can move through it faster. And I think like you are right. The opportunities are so key. Every person listen. I feel like you mentioned earlier, some of the best things that have ever been invented have come through people healing from something. You know, I just interviewed a guest who lost her husband to cancer, and she wrote because of how she noticed how people treated her during his cancer. And then after, she wrote a book on like, here's how you help people in your life. We're going through something. And like, I feel like, you know, it can be so easy. Why is this happening to me? But also, and not that you'd ever wish for bad things to happen to you, but my goodness, like the things that do come from the shit are helping so many more people. And you get to have this incredible journey around you and learn from these lessons. And it doesn't have to be your story, right?
You're so right. And it's so true. Think about it. You know, the best health experts I know, they've been in the worst of health situations and they created their own concoction and healed from it. Someone who's, you know, so great at helping you with, let's say, finances. Maybe they were broke and they came up with their whole recipe. So I feel like we have an obligation. If we've been through something and we've sort of created a path, how do you not share that? Like when the 5 stages showed up, I'm like, how do I keep this to myself? You know, so I put the 5 stages in a program and it blew up and then everyone wanted to work with me. I'm like, well, how do I do that? So I created a certification program because I wanted to get these 5 stages out to everybody. Yeah. And that blew up. And I was like, wait a second, I did the research. I know what works. I know what doesn't work. What would happen if I put everything that has proven to work under one roof? And that's the PBT Institute.
So amazing. You're doing incredible things. Oh my gosh. Debi, this is, I feel like so enlightened. I feel like I've got tools. I hope our listeners do too. I could keep talking to you. We'll have to definitely probably revisit this topic again with you soon, but we're going to take a brief break and then find out how people can work with you now. Okay. Where do you hang out? Where's the best place people get your books? People can work with you if they've gone through betrayal.
Yeah. Everything can be found at the PBT as in Post Betrayal Transformation, thepbtinstitute.com.
Perfect. Okay. You've given us some amazing tools and just so much information that I think will help everybody be it till they see it, even in the midst of a betrayal. But before I let you go, bold, executable, intrinsic, targeted steps people can take to be it till they see it. What do you have for us?
I would say if you're stuck in stage 3, these are 4 questions I invite you to write down. That's my way of saying write these down. Ready? The first one. Yeah. Am I numbing, avoiding, distracting? If so, how? Call yourself on it. Do you walk into the refrigerator or not the kitchen, open the fridge and not the least bit hungry? Like, what's going on? Do you go into a room, put a TV on because you're desperately trying to drown out the sound of your own thoughts? Call yourself on it. Number 2, what am I trying not to see? Call yourself on it. Am I trying not to see that health issue that needs my attention, that relationship issue, the job I hate? The third question, what's life going to look like in 5 to 10 years if I keep this going? The same way you're dealing with it or not dealing with it. Play it out. How does it look? The fourth question, what can life look like in 5 to 10 years if I change now? Not saying it's easy. Transformation begins when you tell yourself the truth.
Yeah. And also, like, you can't be it till you see it if you don't have some ideas of where you want to go, to some sort of dream of something that could be on the other side. Oh, amazing. I invite you guys to write those questions down and go through myself, AKA do it. Oh my gosh. Debi, thank you so much for being here. Y'all, how are you going to use these tips in your life? Please make sure you share this episode with a friend who you know who's going through some betrayal. You know who that person is, that person stuck in stage 3 that you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just pull them out. Just send them this episode. You don't have to tell them why. You could just send it to them. And please tag Dr. Debi Silber, the Be It Pod, and let us know what your takeaways are. We love hearing what these are because it does allow us to see how the impact that we're making in your life. And until next time, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of the Bloom Podcast Network. If you want to leave us a message or a question that we might read on another episode, you can text us at +1 310 905 5534 or send a DM on Instagram at BeItPod.
It's written, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell.
It is transcribed, produced, and edited by the Epic team at Diseño.co.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to Melissa Solomon for creating our visuals.
Also to Angelina Herrico for adding all of our content to our website. And finally, to Meredith Root for keeping us all on point and on time.